Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Speak Plainly podcast, where we speak plainly about things that matter. I am your host, Owl Medicine, and in today's podcast, we're going to be talking about something that probably doesn't actually really matter, but getting there is fun and challenging. So, anyway, today's topic is it's a theory of mine that I've had for a couple of years, and I've talked about it with multiple people who found it very fun and poignant. So I'll just share this. This is going to be a lighthearted episode, especially compared to the normal trauma stuff that we cover on a regular basis. So this fun little theory of mine is about why beards are so popular. Why is it that men wear beards now, like so many men? Male-bodied individuals have always been able to grow facial hair, most of them, right? It's different for different ethnicities. But for the most part, if you're a dude and you want to grow facial hair, you can do that. Now, if you want to grow facial hair, period, you can do that, and that's dope. But what's interesting to me is the fact that, like, everybody is wearing a beard. Like, every male-bodied individual, everybody loves beards. Gay men love beards. Women love beards. Other straight men love beards. Bi men love beards. Everybody loves beards. Why do we love beards so much? It used to be, not very long ago, only clean-shaven men were, like, taken seriously. Only clean-shaven men were professional and were attractive in that way. Like, this really, for me, started with the lumbersexual thing that happened in, like, the late 2000s. Or the late 2010s, like the 2012s, the 2010 to 2015. I don't even know. Whenever that was, the big lumbersexual thing, when that was blowing up on the internet and memes were pretty new. That's when I really noticed it, and I've thought about it over time. And this is a really big trend, right? So why? There's got to be a reason. It doesn't just happen. And I understand that there are cycles in fashion, and we recycle the same things over and over and over again. And this doesn't seem to be a thing that we've recycled from typical Western style. No place recently, because usually, like, our styles are 25 to 35 years behind, and they just we keep reinventing the same things that were around 25 years ago. We're back to low-waisted pants and things from the 90s that everybody loved then and that everybody loves now. So what's interesting to me is why? Why are there so many people wearing beards? And here's my philosophy on it. And it has everything to do with femininity. Now, you're probably being like, what in the world does femininity and beards have in common? Or what do they have to do with each other? Not even, I guess, femininity is the wrong word. It would be feminism. Feminism and beards. And I think feminism is the cause of beards right now. I think that one of the most powerful, and I'm an intersectionalist. I don't believe there is one cause for anything ever. There's always a whole gaggle of reasons that anything happens, and there's no difference here. I believe the same thing here. But I do find it fun to try to figure out what the hierarchy of influences are, because some things obviously have more influence and some things have less influence. So when we're looking at the one thing, what people are usually looking at is what is the one thing that has the most influence on this, and then hoping that if they can change that one thing, it'll change the outcome. But with beards, I think feminism and the rise of feminism is the cause of beards. Okay, so I know that sounds a little strange, but hold on. Can you tell me What expressions of masculinity are safe for good men to express in 2023? I'll wait. Really? Can you what expressions of masculinity are safe for a man to express in 2023, 2022, 2020? How many expressions are there of masculinity that are actually safe to express? Because we can't open doors. We can't, like, pay for dinner. You can't be macho. You can't, there's just, like, there's so many things that men can't do. And this is not a men's rights episode, but I think that is an interesting topic that could be breached on another episode. This is not a men's rights thing at all. This is focusing actually on women's rights and the resulting impact on men's expression of themselves. So we're getting to the heart of it, slowly but surely. I want to bring you with me along this little ride into understanding my little theory as to why beards are so popular and so sexy. So we have, as a nation, finally been putting women closer to where they belong in positions of leadership and positions of power. It is long overdue, but it's finally happening. And this is happening within a patriarchy, right? So the men have been in charge, and in order for women to have a seat at the table, that table either needs to get bigger or men are going to have to leave. There are some men who are going to have to leave the table, or that table's going to have to get bigger. And motherfuckers be greedy, so that table's not going to get any bigger. So as feminism rises and the rights of women are no longer being infringed, and we're allowing them their expression and their power and their influence on the world, men have to adjust. There is an adjustment period. But what I see as the cause of it is I see that women, as they're coming into their power and being like, this is not okay, and we are finding out as a nation and as a world that a lot of the behaviors that were associated with masculinity were terrible. They were toxic. They were not okay. But as with correcting anything, there is always an overcorrective state. And there are some ways that we're overcorrecting. For the most part, like, that's fine. We have to kind of turn this wheel so women can have the power that they deserve. In so doing, men have to find new ways to express their masculinity that is safe. Like I said, we can't open doors. We can't pay for dinner. The traditional gender roles are seen as something bad, and I don't think that they are. I don't think they're bad inherently. I think following any kind of prescription blindly is bad. And we've been following one prescription blindly for so long, it's created toxicity. But I don't think gender roles are bad. I don't think roles are bad. And here's why. When you go into a job, you have a role. You sign a contract that says, this is my role. And you can say, this is above my pay grade. This is not in my lane. And you have a job to do, and you do it well. And in a partnership, in a marriage, where you're both whole human beings with your own lives and perspectives and everything, and you've agreed to do things together, and oftentimes that includes children, managing two whole-ass lives and a whole-ass baby's life is a lot of work. And it does well to have roles to play. Now, how you divide up those roles is utterly arbitrary. We have just divided them traditionally through gender because it was easy. Unfortunately, following protocols blindly always leads to negative outcomes, in my opinion. So I don't think gender roles are a bad thing. I think following them blindly is a bad thing. And that's what's happened and created this toxic masculinity issue that has really acted as a fire to push feminism to the forefront, and women being like, fuck no, this is some bull. And they're right. So in realizing that so much of the expressions of masculinity that we have had in the Western world, in the culture here in the US and in the West, so many of our habits have been toxic that it's hard to separate out the ones that are okay. And this is where beards come in. So say that you are a 20-year-old guy. You're a sophomore in college, or brand new, 2 years into the military, halfway through your, well, either finishing up, I guess, if you're Army, or halfway through your contract, or you're a sophomore in college. You're 20 years old. Think about what it was like to be 20 years old. And now think about being 20 years old right now as a heterosexual man. What might it be like trying to express your masculinity as a heterosexual, traditional guy who's built for that, who's built for the more traditional stuff, somebody who is naturally conservative, some maybe an earth sign like a Capricorn or a Taurus or something? How is that man supposed to express their masculinity in a way that can draw a partner? Because if you're trying to draw a female partner and you like feminine women, then how are you supposed to draw them and attract to them if they are attracted to masculinity, but you are uncertain how to express your masculinity in a way that isn't toxic? Because basically everything is toxic nowadays. And we're recognizing, like I said, much of our gender roles and stuff have become toxic. I don't think they were toxic to begin with, but they have. And now we have this problem of everything associated with masculinity has this association of toxicity, except one: beards. I really think it's that simple. I know this is silly. It's a bit of a silly episode, but I really like looking at big societal shifts and big societal trends and wondering what other huge societal trend could be influencing another. And when I zoom out to look at the scope of the beard thing, one of the few options I see that are obvious, that could be an obvious influencer, that is an appropriate scale of influence to make an impact, is feminism. So to me, I think this is why the beard craze has started 10 years ago, and I think it's going to continue for another 10 years or so. I really do. It might be over by 3030. Or 2030. It might be over by 2030, but I don't think it's going to be over any sooner than that, because we have at least an entire generation, honestly, probably 2.5, before we really figure out what as a nation we agree culturally are safe expressions of masculinity. It all got chopped up and disappeared into gender roles, and now things that are associated with masculinity may or may not be masculine. They're just associated with the role that the male-bodied person in a relationship played. So I know it's kind of silly, but think about it for a little while, right? It's fun and it's interesting to think about things on this scale. It's how I pass time anyway. I hope you find it enjoyable. Doesn't it make sense though? Doesn't it make sense? Does this make sense to you? Men and male-bodied people have been in charge and in power for so long, and we fuck things up. And now it seems like we're all pretty well agreed, at least the people, maybe not the old dinosaurs in charge, but the people of the US are pretty much agreed that it's time for women to be doing some stuff. And that means that men are going to have to take a back seat for a little while. Men are going to have to adjust. And this is one of the adjustments that we're making. This is one of the big societal adjustments that I think anthropologists, if anybody ever looked at this, in 50 years would totally see this trend, and at least one of them would make this same assumption that I am making right now. Because it is really hard right now to be a man. And that might piss people off because it's all about women's rights. And that's exactly why it's very hard to be a man, is because it is all about women's rights. And men who are young right now, young men are having a hard time because they didn't do anything. They're not the ones in charge. They're not the ones oppressing women. They were raised in the same world that their 20-year-old female counterparts are in, and they did nothing wrong, and yet they're the ones making all of these adjustments. And awesome, great, make the adjustments because we need the future to be different, but none of it is their fault. And I think we forget that sometimes. So I think it's really smart and cool that as a culture, we've all subliminally agreed upon one safe expression of masculinity. And I think one of the reasons it is the beard is because, like I said at the beginning, almost anybody can grow a beard. And number two, you can see that masculinity from far, far away. You can see when a motherfucker has a beard. Like, you can see when a guy has a beard from far away and be like, oh, that's a dude. He's got a 2-foot beard. And you can be pretty certain. So at least you have that. Anyway, this is a very, very short episode, but it's just a fun one. I hope that this was fun for you, and I hope this makes sense to you. I really do. I hope this makes sense to you. I hope you got a kick out of it, because that's why I think everybody finds beards so sexy. Is it really boils down to, it's one of the few safe expressions of masculinity that are available to men in 2023. I don't know any other safe expression of masculinity, one that won't get you ridiculed or called toxic or called conformist or whatever. There's not a lot of safety for men right now, and especially young men. And I think beards are how they're going about providing themselves with a safe, pre-approved expression of their own masculinity. All right. Thanks for listening. If you made it this far, you didn't make it that far, but you made it to the end. I appreciate you listening. I hope that you have a fantabulous day, and I hope that maybe this week, don't take stuff so seriously. Maybe this week, let's just think on some big, philosophical, possibly controversial, but ultimately inconsequential subjects. Because that's a fun way to work your brain in a low-stakes environment, which actually is good for your ADHD. If any of you are like me and are ADHD babies, it's a great way because it teaches you how to focus in a not high-pressure environment. You want to know why ADHDers are also procrastinators? It's because we need those external expectations and limitations on us in order for us to function. In order for us to produce and output the stuff that we need to have pressure on. That's what we're used to. That's part of the chronic stress adaptation. We need that stress. That's how we've learned to function. So if you're an ADHD brain or a chronic stress adapted brain, then enjoy, have fun with this. Think about weird, inconsequential, like bird's eye perspective type of things. It's fun. It's a great way to pass your time. I've taken up enough of your time with this today. I hope you have a fantastic day. If you enjoy the podcast, consider becoming a Patreon member or donate and buy me a coffee. All the links are below. Thank you very much again for listening. And remember, stay curious, stay bearded, and stay uncomfortable.
roots and